Good morning and welcome to the first session of Coaching Managers and Supervisors. My name is Andy Mojica and I will be the presenter for the day. I want to thank all of you before anything for making it here on time and being ready to start the presentation. I know that some of you guys had a little drive to get here really, and I appreciate that you guys were able to make it on time. As I was going through the roster before you guys came in, I did realize that some of you guys have been around for a while as managers, which is great. It's fantastic that you guys have that experience. While some of you guys, this is the first time that you actually go to a formal training on being a supervisor and a manager. This combination is going to be ideal. It's going to be really fantastic. Since we get to the question and answer sessions, you're going to be able to interact with each other and get real life scenarios as to what actually goes on in the world, what actually goes on as a managers and supervisors. If at any point anyone has any questions, just raise your hand. Once I call your name, just ask your question. If by any chance I do not know the answer, which I may not know the answer to everything, don't worry, we'll put it on the side, and before the session is over, I'll get the answer for you. All the questions are valid. There are no questions, like people say, there are no dumb questions. Just ask any question. If we know the answer and it's productive, go ahead. Everything is good. So just ask away and let's have a good presentation. The first thing that I have to tell you, all of you guys, is congratulations. You made it. You are the supervisor. Your dreams of becoming a supervisor have come true. For those that have been a supervisor for a while, congratulations on remaining a supervisor and making it work. Not everyone is able to do that. So what I tell for the new people, the new ones that have become supervisors recently and were managers, everyone thinks of this. You have been laser focused on getting the promotion, so you have been working extra hard, going the extra mile whenever you could, and it worked. You became a supervisor, but no one really ever told you how to be a supervisor. So now what? You have the knowledge to do the job, you are quick at delivering results, and operation manager has very high expectations of what you're going to do with the team. But really no one told you what it is that you needed to do to get other people to do the work. You know how to do the work because you are driven. But what if the other person is not driven? Or your team is not really going after the same results that you are? Now what? This is where we are going to help you here to potentially give you as many answers as we can so that you could go up to the next level. Because reality is going to set in very quickly, and you are going to realize that the picture that has been painted has gotten out of focus, and now you cannot see, and you can no longer see the big picture of where you want to be in the future. So let's break it down, and by the end of the day, you should be able to see the big picture again and have some idea of what is coming for you. This session is the first of 3, and this one will get you back on track. Really, for the new ones, is putting you on track to do a job. Now, this is not going to be a silver bullet. None of these 3 presentations are going to be a silver bullet to saving your career or getting your career on to the next level unless you really put some effort into it. What we're here for is to provide some guidance and be the foundation for what is to be a supervisor and a manager, an effective one at that. Anyone could be a supervisor and a manager, but not everyone could be an effective one. So that's what we're going after. We don't want you to be just a supervisor. We want you to be an effective supervisor, one that is going to make a difference for the company, for the employees, and for yourself, for the clients, for everyone. Not everyone is the same. Now, people are not going to say, other managers are not going to tell you, or maybe some will, I don't know how that person got into that position. They don't have what it takes to be a supervisor. You don't want to be the person that they're talking about. You want to be the other person, the one that everyone is talking great things about. You don't want to either be the person talking about the other person as a bad supervisor. You want to be the one that knows what they're doing, is taking their team, and is not getting on this sidetrack by small talk about supervisors and what they're doing and they're not doing. You want to be the example. You want to lead by example. In session 1, we will be discussing what is the meaning of being a supervisor and how it's actually supposed to be. The requirements for the position will also be covered, which leads me to believe that because all of you are here, you meet these requirements. Again, just like I previously said, some people get into the managerial position thinking that it's something and that it's not. managers and supervisors, and you're going to hear me say supervisors and managers, even though the word is not fully interchangeable, we are going to sort of use it here as the same. It doesn't make much of a difference for the purpose of this presentation. If I say supervisor or manager, for our purposes, a supervisor or a manager is a person that is in charge of other people. So that's how we're going to use those words here. So if you hear me say supervisor or manager, I'm meaning the same thing, even though it may be slightly different definitions for them. Finally, by the time we finish here, you should be able to describe what are the roles and responsibilities of a manager. Again, not everyone could be a supervisor. You're here, congratulations. By the time we finish these sessions, you might ask yourself, why didn't someone tell me what a supervisor had to do in order to be a supervisor? Not to become one, but actually to remain as a supervisor and being an effective supervisor. If I had known that before I went through all this, I might have stayed as either a salesperson, if that's what you were, or I have just stayed as an associate. Now that I'm a supervisor, now you don't want to go back. Now you have the title, you have the money, you have all the benefits that come with it. So now it's time to move forward. Here, we're going to help you, give you as much as we can in order to do this. Now, I have been doing this for a while, for some time now. One of the sad things that you will see over time is that there are people that are giving orders, or at least they're given the authority to give orders. They control the work, they assign work, they pretty much direct it, they do everything, but they are not a supervisor, at least in the eyes of the company. They were not given the official title as a supervisor, but they do everything a supervisor does. So, do you think that person is a supervisor, or is just an employee that has been given extra responsibilities? That's a good question, and has many legal implications. Now, according to the Department of Labor, if a person has the authority to assign work and direct work, and at the same time direct the employees who he or she assigns the work to, in the eyes of the Department of Education, the Department of Labor, that person is a supervisor. Now, before you guys got officially the position of a supervisor, the title anyway of supervisor, how many of you guys going the extra mile helping your supervisors and your managers? How many of you guys did you assign work to someone else? Did you directed employees to do something different than what they were doing before, even though you didn't have the title as a supervisor? If something were to happen during that time frame that you were not officially a supervisor, but you were acting as a supervisor, you are legally responsible, or the company itself may be held liable for things that you may have done during that period of time, even though you were not officially a supervisor, because you were acting as a supervisor, or at least you were given the authority to act as a supervisor, even though you didn't have the title. The reason that I emphasize this so much is because, as we're going to go later on in the presentation, there are going to be situations when you're going to delegate work, you're going to assign work. You want to make sure that those things that you are delegating, you are not delegating your responsibilities of assigning work and directing work to someone else that is not a supervisor, because that could create problems for that individual, for yourself, the person that was directed to do the work, and the organization in general. So this is a lose-lose situation, and you don't want to be in that position. So you want to make sure that you understand that you cannot assign work, or you cannot delegate work to individuals that are not supervisors, for them to go forward or go ahead and supervise other people without having the title. Liability is very important in this position. Now, many of you, that's to say all of you guys, we're not really ever told the liabilities and responsibilities that come with the position. Later on in the presentation, we're going to see some of the issues that comes with the conflict of interest and a number of things that happens once you transition into the managerial position or supervisors. These roles are very important. The first thing that you're focusing that you are worried about is, I need to make my numbers, I need to make everything work. But sometimes you forget that at the end of the day, you're a person, and there are conflicts that you may be having, that those things kind of cross over into the managerial position. Those have to be dealt with in different tracks. So remember, if you have the ability to assign work and there will work, you are considered a supervisor, regardless of whether you are officially a supervisor. So keep that in mind as we go on. As I was getting ready for this presentation, I happened to be watching, I think it was an HBO show, just a comedian, a Hispanic comedian. Very funny, hilarious. One of the things that she was talking about was how happy her family was when she came back from work and she had the keys. Like, what do you mean the keys? Yeah, she was given the supervisory role. It was a fast food place, but now she has the keys to the job. Everyone is happy. Everyone, oh, congratulations, congratulations. You got the position, you got the raise, you got the keys. You had supposedly the respect of your employees and your employer because you got the position. You don't really know what you did. You did a good job. No one really told you everything that was going to be attached to it, other than you got the keys. Now you have the power to open and close and tell people to go on break. That's fantastic. So now, no one told you that you needed to deal with stressed out employees, that you had to manage the change, that you had to manage their tasks, that no one really told you that you had to be training them and that you are going to be doing all the everything, really. No one told you that you needed to be deliberate about what you did, your behavior. Everyone told you, oh, congratulations, here you go. Just keep doing what you're doing. But they forgot to tell you the most important part, that some things were going to be different. Now you have the position. One of the things that is going to happen is you have the new responsibilities. And some of your responsibilities include, and they're not limited to, maintaining a safe source of unproductive environment for your employees. They're gonna get hurt. Employees that get hurt, you have liabilities on yourself and the organization. If they get seriously hurt, OSHA, the safety and health, the Organization for Safety and Health, could be involved. And now you have bigger issues. It's not just you and the employee. Now it's you, the government, and everyone that is involved. You have to evaluate their performance. No one told you that you needed to evaluate anyone's performance. Now you went from being an employee and being friends with potentially your neighbor to now telling them, oh, you did that wrong, and because you did that wrong, you're not going to get the pay raise, the increase really, or you may actually get fired. No one really told you that, but you had to evaluate their performance and provide effective feedback. Good feedback. There's not any little crappy thing that you want to tell them. You have to be honest with them. You have to be a fair supervisor to all your employees, even those that you might not quite like. Just imagine, you had a friend before you became a supervisor. You had a coworker. You didn't really get along with the person because you felt that the person didn't do their job. Imagine that. Now you're the supervisor. How do you handle that? You didn't get along with the person when you were a regular employee. Now how are you going to deal with the person now that you're the supervisor? If you didn't talk before, now you want to talk even less, but it's now your job to talk to them. So just think about what is going to happen. You cannot become a bully either. Because you don't like the person, you cannot treat them worse than the rest. You could be held liable for it. You cannot be a bully, you have to lead by example. So there are a number of situations that come with the territory. Now, one of the things is you have to be mindful that the work that you are assigning or the work that is being done is not causing undue stress. Now, it has been said that a lot of employees, when they quit, when they leave an organization, they don't leave because of the work, they leave because of the supervisors and their managers. So imagine that. Are the employees leaving the company because of the work or because of you? I personally wouldn't like employees to be leaving because they don't like how I'm treating them. That's just me. I will hope that that's the same for all of you guys. Now, you don't have to be friends with everyone. That doesn't work either. But you have to be fair. That's the key part. You have to be fair and be realistic of how other people feel. You also have to be proactive. If you're talking to management and you know that changes are coming, you're not going to exclude things that you're not supposed to, But be proactive in the sense that if you know the changes are coming and it's something that you can control as a supervisor or manager, go ahead and do it. Address it. Let employees know that the changes are coming. Prepare them. You don't want to. Surprises are horrible, especially when it matters, when it means that you might not have a job tomorrow. So avoid surprises if at all possible. Prepare them, train them, and they'll be thankful. Even if at the end of the day they don't have the job. If they know that you tried, that you did your best, or at least that you tried, not your best, but at least that you did something, that's going to be good. Foster a culture of ownership. If you're one of those people that before you became a supervisor, you did something, you blame it on someone else, that's not a good start. Because then when you became a supervisor, or now that you are a supervisor, you are not going to be blaming others. Oh, I didn't meet my goals because that employee didn't do what they were supposed to. Well, that employee didn't do what they were supposed to because maybe you, as a supervisor, were not following up enough. Now, that back and forth as the manager supervisor is a recipe for disaster. So you have to be on top of it. You have to foster ownership, a culture of ownership amongst the employees. You're a team. You're going to spend most of your time working together. So at this point, everyone has to work together in order to achieve the goal of pretty much keeping a job and actually making money for the organization. You also have to be deliberate. You have to make sure that you're leading by example. And one of those examples is what you teach. If you're teaching to be on time every day, and you know that you're supposed to be there as a supervisor at 7:45, so when your employees get there at 7:50, they could go and get ready and open at 8. If you yourself are getting there at 7:55, you cannot expect the store to open at 8 because you were late. You cannot blame it on the employees because you were late. So you have to live by example. That's a simple example, but it happens all the time. Oh, why the store didn't open? Oh, the employees were not ready. Why the employees were not ready? Because they were not here on time. You were the one not there on time, but that's the behavior that you yourself have to control for yourself, and then you cannot really hold other people accountable until you're accountable for yourself. So the first thing is you have to be mindful of what you're teaching and what you're training, and that you're following your own advice. Now that the main definition or the main explanation for who is a supervisor and or manager, we're going to start drilling down on the responsibilities that comes with the position. For example, as you could recall from a few slides ago, one of the first things, or the main definition really of who a supervisor is a person that could assign or co-direct work. Now with the assigning part, there are side effects to those things. How do you know, or how can you tell really when your assignments or all the work that you're putting in is creating a role overload, is role ambiguity, or it's conflicting. Now, there are a number of things that happens that sometimes you as a supervisor will not notice because you are focused on too many things at once. And one or twice that it happens, okay, it happens, not a big deal. But when it happens on a regular basis, everyone gets tired. The supervisors, yourself, you get tired because you are putting out fires instead of managing. It happens all the time. It happened to me at the beginning until I realized what was going on. Putting out fires all day, you are not managing. Work is managing you. You're just trying to keep up. So if you notice that you spend most of your day putting out fires, there's something wrong. Concentrate, figure out what it is that you're doing wrong, and start from scratch again. Now, sometimes what happens when that's going on to you is that because you're trying to keep up, you keep assigning work, and you don't realize that the time allocated to do that work is not enough because all the other things that you have already assigned. So pretty much when you give too much work in too little time to be completed, that is called role overload. Another way to put it, you expect an employee to do 5 things, but they're only time to do 3 things during the day. Now, the employee is going to try to do their best to do it, especially if they want to become a manager. They're going to go the extra mile. They're going to get burned out. By the time they get to the end of the day, they don't want to talk to anyone. When they go home, they're going to take it with them to work. If it's on a weekend, they'll probably mess up their weekend. And when they come back on Monday, they were going to be complaining that on the weekend they couldn't do anything because how tired they were because of the week. So that's not going to go good for anyone. And that's just a continuous thing that is really not going to get any better. Another term for role overload has been said to be qualitative overload. Pretty much explains the same thing. But in this case, quantitative overload is when the work itself is difficult or complex to do. So if you have, let's just give you an example. I used to do it as well. Used to work in fast food. The work itself is not hard. It's just constant and it's non-stop. It's not difficult. That's what I should say. The work itself is not difficult, but it's hard. It's labor intensive. You don't stop. It's very repetitive and it's very simple in its nature, but you get tired. Now, if you work in a hospital doing operations or something more complex, it's just a lot of little things that you have to think about. If you're making burgers on a fast food place, like I did at the beginning when I was younger, you only have one little station that you have to worry about. You have 5 or 6 ingredients, a million combinations, but the ingredients are there, and that's it. You don't have to think outside the box. And honestly, they don't pay you to think. They just want you to repeat the work, and that's it. If you're working in other positions, let's say that you're an advisor, or like you're a teacher per se, or you're a doctor or a lawyer, those positions are more complex. And there are little things that if you don't see, that could be the difference between life and death, or that could be the difference between being in jail and being out of jail. So those positions themselves, they may not physically be hard to do, but they're draining, they're mentally draining. And those positions are qualitative overload. They're classified as qualitative overload because of their complexity. So you just have to make sure that you are not that if you're in a job, that all the positions are hard, are complex, they require a lot of work to do. You don't want to assign too much work in that regard to the same employee. Because if it was hard to do one, having to do 2 or 3 things that are difficult and complex, it's just going to kill them. Over time, how many times have you heard, oh, I need a drink? Well, it's not a drink because they might like the drink. They might want to drink at the end of work because they got stressed out during the whole day and they know that they shouldn't drink. Well, they shouldn't know. They can't drink at work. So you don't want to be that employee or that employer that is causing your employees to drink. That is not a good thing. Over time, that will mess up everyone. The employee primarily, but everyone really. At some point, the exposure to this type of a stressor is the work itself becomes a stressor. It's not even you anymore. The work that you keep assigning is going to be the one that is going to be creating additional problems. And between you and the work, no one is going to win again. So this is one of those things, a lot of this position in general, as a supervisor, you have to be realistic. You have to think of yourself when you were in that position. What were the issues that you were having? Now, good supervisors, effective supervisors, they remember how it was to be an employee, and they don't forget that part. They keep remembering. Oh, I remember when I was an employee and I had all this work, these are the issues that I had. So don't forget about those things, because those things are going to be what are going to make the difference. Now that you are a new supervisor, to make sure that you keep that in mind. You cannot forget how it felt to be an employee before you became a supervisor, because those are going to be the things that, as we are going to later on in the presentation see, those are going to be the first thing that employees are going to bring back to you. Like, oh, now that you're a supervisor, you don't want to deal with us. You're different. You're special. So you don't really want that kind of drama, if you want to call it, because that is not going to be helpful to anyone. So just make sure that as you continue on this position, you are mindful that at least on the overload part, you give people enough time to do their work. Everyone is here to work, to make a paycheck, but no one wants to get stressed out for doing that work. So give them time. it has to be one of my favorite issues. You have a job to do. You know how to do it. But then there are conflicts in the sense that your supervisor wants to do something a specific way, but the client, the one that is actually paying for the work to get done, wants it to be done another way. Now, you don't want to get in the middle of that. You don't want to, you as the employee, remember, now I'm talking about as employee for a second. You're the employee. Your supervisor is telling you, I want you to do it this way. And you know that the client said, I want to do it to be done this way. Now, again, you don't want to get in the middle of that because you're the employee. But what do? Do you follow your employer, your supervisor, or do you follow the client? Now, think of it as the supervisor. You are the supervisor. What are the reasons that you may want to do it differently that the client wants to do it? Maybe because you're going to save money for the organization. Now, as the supervisor, do you want to do it the way the organization wants you to do it, which may or may not be the right way, or do you want to do it the way your client, the one that is paying for it, wants you to do it? It's not easy. So what is going to happen with role ambiguity is that it's going to be, who do you want to make happy? You're the supervisor. You have the control to tell your employees, I want you to do it this way, or I want you to do it that way. You have to be very careful that you're consistent with these things. Because what is going to happen is the employee is not going to know if this week we're going to do it like we did it last week to please the client because they were upset and they make a big deal out of it, or this week because the client hasn't said anything, we're going to do it the organization's way. That is very difficult for an employee to figure that out, especially if the supervisors are not being proactive in telling them what is expected of them. Just imagine that last week you did it the way the client wanted because I made a huge deal out of it. Okay, great, fantastic, you did it last week. Now this week, same issue, but this time the client didn't say anything. What does the employee assume? Oh, no, we'll do it the same way again. No one said anything. So we'll do it the way we did it last week for the client that complained. Now this week, because no one complained, the supervisor expected you as the employee now to do it the organization's way because the last week was an exception. But you didn't know that. You did it the client's way. And now the supervisor is upset. Now, if you are that supervisor, it's on you to make sure that the employee knows what they're expected to do. You cannot rely on that they're going to realize that because there's no issue this week, we're going to do one way versus another. Now, that happens all the time. All the time. I worked in banking for many years, over 10 years really. It happened all the time. The paper says, when you get hired, oh, do the best that is for the client. Okay, fantastic, we'll do the best that is for the client. Now that's on paper. Once you're actually working, you figure out really quickly that sometimes what is the best for the client is not the best for you, or the organization, or your boss, or anyone. So you have to figure out, do I do the best for the client? Do I do the best for me? Or do I do the best for the supervisor or organization? You as a supervisor have to make it very simple. Be consistent. You can make exceptions, that's for sure. That's what you're there for. You really make the exceptions. But if you make too many exceptions, that becomes a rule, and they are no longer exceptions. So be mindful of that as well. So just keep that in mind. You want to be consistent so they know what you're doing. Another beautiful thing that happens all the time is the conflict, just pure conflict, raw conflict itself. The way to explain that is, I want you to do A, but when you do A, I also want you to do B and C when you finish. But the more I do of A, the more difficult it's going to be to do B and C. And if I change to B to kind of catch up so that it doesn't go too far, then A goes away. I'll never catch up with A. And then if I try C to kind of make it even, I never finish A or B. And at the end of the day, I didn't finish any. So I couldn't finish A, B, or C because the more I did of one, the farther away the other ones got. So now, Supervisors, supervisors, managers, we don't always realize that. We tell you, I need A, B, and C, just do it now. Do this, that. As soon as you can, we need to finish. But the more I do one, the more difficult it gets to make the other one. So you can let me give you an example. If, let's say let's go back to the bank. Let me give you an example of the bank. We charge for money orders and cashier checks every time someone orders one or purchases one, whatever. Now, they tell you in the morning meeting, and you're the teller at this point, you're told as a teller in the morning meeting, a few hours earlier, every single person that comes into this office today and wants to get a money order cashier check, you're going to charge them. Simple. Okay, fine. Not a problem. The first one comes in, you charge, okay, not a big deal. Second one comes in, it's a friend of the manager. Oh, I have never been charged. This is crazy. Why will you charge me? Okay, you call the supervisor. What happens to be the friend of the person? Oh, no, don't worry. Just put it aside. Don't charge this person. Okay, that's a little conflict. But remember, in the morning they told you need to charge everyone. And by the end of the day, you're going to get a percentage of how many cashier checks you gave out compared to how many you actually charged. And there's going to be a difference. There's a math. Everything needs to add up. And you need to be within a specific number. You just give one away to a person that you manager knew. That happens 3-4 more times during the day. At the end of the day, the reports come out. You didn't make the numbers. Does your manager know that 4 of those orders were waived by your supervisor because they knew them? No. They only know that you didn't make the numbers. That's all they care. Did you do it or didn't you do it? Now, at that point, you could say, my manager told me to do this. Sure, I'm going to do it one way. But at the end of the day, when the reports come out, when it goes to the upper management, the only thing that they see is a little employee number and how many waves or whatever they did. They don't really care what the reason was. They only know that that's what happened. So you have to make sure that the goals that you are assigning, they are aligned with each other. If A takes away from B and B takes away from A, you will never be able to get A and B together. They're never going to get to the end, because the more you do one, the less you have of the other. So you have to keep that in mind so that everything works together. Now, most organizations are always going to be making changes. They're going to be tweaking this and that to make it better. Now, change is never stop. I mean, it's a never-ending thing. So you could think of it as change is one of those few things in life that is constant. And as a result, everyone should be made aware of changes that are coming or that have already taken place. I have been in multiple organizations throughout my life. Sometimes we were the employees. The office were the last people to be notified of changes that happen. Now, I don't want to be the first one, but I don't want to be the last one. That's for sure. I know I'm not going to be the first one. That's okay. But I don't want to find out by a client, by a customer, that something changed, and I'm the employee. I'm sitting there, and I haven't found out about it. Now, that has happened to me a couple of times. In fact, one of the companies that I work for got bought out by another one, and I didn't find out until 2 days later that it came out that we had been bought out. Everyone else knew about it, but we had officially not been told that it had happened. That's not the way that works. I have worked for that company for a bunch of years. All of a sudden, we changed names. We had a new supervisor, new management. Those are some of the things that I'm going to talk to you about here. So most of, if not all organizations are going to be making the changes. Now, unfortunately, this information is not always disseminated clearly enough to all the employees. Now, you want to make sure that all the employees are on the same page. If there was a change, some changes are not big deal, but you still need to do them. Some changes are huge. Policy change. Maybe yesterday you could wear in white, you could dress in white, but today it has to be in blue. Yesterday it was in purple because that was the number of the color of the company, but today is blue. So if you wear purple today, you're saying that you are not agreeing with the new organization, but no one told you that. Now you get in trouble. So that's the kind of thing, little things and big things, that you have to keep in mind whenever you're making the changes. These new responsibilities of making changes. You as a supervisor have the position and the responsibility really to explain upcoming changes and the reason behind these changes. It's not good enough to say, from now on, this is the way that we're going to do it. This is the new procedure. You should provide a reason behind the decision so that employees understand why the past is no longer good. Now, perfect example. Last week, we were able to do it this way and there were no issues. But beginning this week, whatever we did last week doesn't work anymore. That's wrong. Okay, tell me why. We have been doing that for years. How come now it's not good? So you have to give a reason, an explanation. It helps employees understand the reason why. It's not that they don't believe you, even though they may not, but it's psychologically it's better to let them know a reason, to provide a reason. That's why when someone unfortunately kills another person, why? But why? What happened? Why did they do that? They just want to understand it. That's the whole point of it. They want to understand the reasons as to why the changes are being done. So instead of saying, from now on, this is how we're going to do it, you could say, due to changes in the market and the strategic goals of the organization, it has been found that doing the work in this way, in this manner, is the most beneficiary way of doing the work. Just provide an explanation. It doesn't have to be a perfect explanation. You just want to hear something that makes sense. Don't make something up that is not going to do anything. So one that happens all the time now. Technology. For example, different cities have different ways of having tolls. I remember one of the local expressways here, about 10-15 years ago. The entire highway will come to a crawl when you had to pay the toll. There were easily 20 people taking cash, coins, whatever, to pay the toll. 5-10 years later, there's not one person. Not even one. There's nothing there. Everything is electronic. For that type of position, technology took all those jobs away. Some people have lost their jobs to technology. And for better or worse, machinery, as it gets more advanced, it will continue to happen. More people are going to be unhappy, upset, and even angry that technology has taken over their place of work. Now, you as a supervisor and or manager, you have to help employees through this transition. Again, I'm going to tell you this. Now, if you happen to be the managers or the supervisors of those toll workers that lost all their work, there's really not much you could say. I mean, what can you say? Oh, we're going to have you temporarily in another place. You know that you're going to no longer be in that organization. So while you are in that position, what do? Do you do the work? Do you start complaining? Well, at that point, it's very difficult. So you have to help employees through that transition, either by training them before they get laid off, most likely. You have to try to see if you could find them work. That would be ideal. That would be fantastic. They would love you. But more than anything, you have to be there for them. You have to be honest with them and tell them what is coming. Because not everything is going to be roses and have rainbows and butterflies and whatever. It's not going to be easy. People are going to be angry. They're going to get fired. They're going to be laid off. Fire and laid off is the same thing. Different words, but same thing. You lose your job. So it doesn't matter if you say laid off. Well, I got laid off. I got fired. You got fired anyway. You don't have a job anymore. So being laid off is the same as being fired. So understand where the employees are coming from. And remind yourself that you were there. And you may be one of the ones that is getting fired too. So you have a double job there. Now, one of the things that keeps happening all the time with these changes is that you always hear about the grapevine. Whenever anything is happening or is coming down, I heard through the grapevine. Oh, what is a grapevine? Well, that's where all the rumors and gossips of the organization goes. It's incredible. I was reading one of these psychology books. Pretty much it said you have to tap in. And you as a supervisor or manager, they even said that effective managers and supervisors, they know who the people are that make the grapevine work. So they recommended to realize who those people were and to give the information so they could put it through the grapevine to calm down rumors. Now, that's pretty crazy. I mean, the grapevine is not a physical thing. It could be if you send it by email, text, or something. But more than anything, it's a person talking to another one, spreading a rumor, whether it's true or not. most of them have been shown that most of them have some sort of basis on the truth, and they just go from there. So they said, just keep connected to the grapevine and put rumors to the rest. If you hear, oh, I heard that we're going to get laid off, if you know that's not true for a fact, bring it up, put it down before it gets out of hand. So remember, there's a saying, I like the saying, it's in Spanish, but it's sort of translated to English, that it says, forewarned conflicts have less casualties. Again, forewarned conflicts have less casualties. If you could tell people ahead of time that something is coming, and they could potentially avoid it, or at least do something about it before it happens, they may get saved. Wouldn't you want to tell them that? So that's the whole point of this. So let them know ahead of time, be proactive as much as you can. Don't break any laws either, but try to do as much as you can to help them out. Anyway, they were your co-workers and they're still your co-workers. So that's one of your responsibilities. Managing change. The expectations that they may have. The issues with technology, that's not going to stop, that's going to keep going. The philosophy with upper management if they change companies and the new things that are coming. And just let them know, be honest with them. Again, at the end of the day, they may well be upset at the organization, they may even be upset at you, but they may also realize that you did whatever you could to either help them or at least keep them informed of what was going on. As you may have noticed, we have some technical issues here in the room, so we are now faced with a little more noise, ambient noise anyway. So hopefully that's not going to distract for the main purpose of this. But as we continue, our responsibilities, roles and responsibility for managers, managing tasks. So there are tasks that only you can do, only you can delegate, and only you can postpone it. So as managers, these responsibilities are your things. So what do you do? How do you decide what you, obviously the ones that you can do is you only can do, but how do you decide which ones you could delegate and postpone? How does that work? So for example, there are reports for which you may be the only person that has the clearance to see and work with these reports. Obviously, you cannot delegate the completion of these reports or any other tasks that may be associated with them. But what about the data collection? They're separate things, but they go into the same place. So can someone else help you collect the information, and you are the only one that is going to be able to put all these things together in order to complete the report? Now, over time you will learn that there are certain aspects of the job that can be delegated. Now, this is a great thing. You cannot do everything. At the beginning, you're going to realize or believe that yes, you can do everything. You are the person in charge, you're supposed to do everything, and if you don't do it, it doesn't get done right. Sure, that might be the case, but when that's happening, you're not the manager, you're the employee with the title of manager, and that doesn't work. In the short run, it may be perfect, but in the long run, that is not going to be sustainable. So let's use example of the report, data collection. You may not want to delegate everything, but as you delegate, you are going to realize who are the employees that you can trust, and those same employees are going to remember, and this is the good thing, you may have been one of those employees that a manager or supervisor delegated some work for, and then they trusted you, they saw that you could do the work, and eventually you became the supervisor or the manager. So this is the same thing. You may delegate the work, you could pretty easily figure out which are the employees that you could trust, that you could rely on more than anything to do the work well. Anyone could do it, but not everyone could do it well. And then from there, they're going to feel that they have your trust, and you could trust them. That's great to have employees that you could trust and that they trust you back. So those are the people that you could delegate to. Now, as a person in charge for the authority to assign the work and as well as to postpone it, you're in the position that you can influence how the days of employees go. So let's say that you are the supervisor, as you are, or manager, and you guys having a crappy day. Nothing is working out. As soon as you walked in, the air conditioning, like it just happened to us, decided to malfunction, so you no longer have an air conditioning, you have to open the windows and the doors. Behold, you cannot do the work because you cannot concentrate because everything is happening around you. So now you have to improvise. Okay, fine, you're improvising. But the work that you do doesn't allow for improvisation. You have to be concentrated. So do you send everyone home, wait until tomorrow to get restarted again, until hopefully the air gets fixed and decides to work again? Or do you just work through it? Hard work, it happens, just make it work. Well, you could do either one. But if as a good supervisor, an effective supervisor that you want to be, you realize that it's going to be more effective or more productive really at the end to send everyone home. Sure, you're going to have more expenses that day because you didn't do any work and you still pay them, and then have them tomorrow fresh to do the work? Or do you want the employees to spend the whole 8 hours there, miserable, doing their work, maybe not even doing it right because they cannot concentrate, and then tomorrow you still have to do the work anyway because the work wasn't done right? So as an effective supervisor, you could control their day, how their day goes. So if I were in that position and I had the authority to call it a day, I will call it a day. Again, each situation is very different, and you have to see if you have the authority and what are the potential issues. Unintended consequences. Most important are the unintended consequences of you sending everyone home or postponing some work to do, the deadlines. So keep that in mind when you do this kind of stuff. One of the things that you're really going to realize very soon into this position is that a very consistent thing that you're going to do, very consistent task, duty, whatever you want to call it, that you're going to be doing as a manager, is that you're going to be a trainer. What do you mean a trainer? No one told me that I was going to be a trainer. Well, you're going to be a teacher. Again, effective teachers, they do more than teaching. They do more than teach. They train you. And by what I mean train you is that they show you how what they teach you or they tell you actually works, how you could get it to work. And then they assess your progress to see if everything that they tell you went through. So again, as a manager or supervisor, again, one of your never-ending responsibility is that of a teacher. There is always something to teach and or something to relearn. How many times have you thought you knew something and then you find out that you didn't know it? You had a pretty good idea of it, but you didn't quite know fully. So you have to reteach yourself. You have to watch the videos again. You have to watch the movie again because you didn't realize that the person that was all over the movie was a ghost, not a real person. But you didn't catch it until 2 weeks later. So you have to watch it again. You have to see little things because you didn't learn from the beginning. So you have to, and you didn't assess yourself. So that's why you didn't learn and it took you a while. So for example, as a teacher, teachers, you have the responsibility to teach your employees the right way of doing things, or at the very least, how the work is done itself. You could provide as much information as you may want, but if you do not practice, the transfer of knowledge may not translate into actual work. Again, how many times, and this goes back to maybe high school or college or whatever you want to call it, you hear the professor came in, put a PowerPoint, read off the PowerPoint, the period ended, everyone went home. How many of those people, of those students, learn anything? Now, some people may say it's the responsibility of the student to do the learning. Sure. And then I will say it's the responsibility of the professor to do the teaching. Now, one of the interesting things is that when you're in high school, elementary, middle, one of the lower grades, the professor is going to be more hands-on in teaching. Once you get to higher education or college, universities, whatever you do after 12th grade, the student is the one that is expected to do much of the teaching and learning, teaching themselves, learning by themselves. It looks like the professors are more there to be managing the learning process, but the students are the ones learning and teaching themselves. Now, the professors are going to be the ones, again, doing the managing portion of it and the assessing, but you're going to be doing your own teaching and your own training. Now, when it comes to the trainer, whenever possible, have hands-on practice. It goes a long way. Now, if you're always reading the book, but you don't put it to practice, or you don't have the ability to have maybe an internship, which does come in handy for what you're doing, yeah, the book, the paper looks great. The practice you don't know because you haven't done it. So you say, oh, I'm an expert at this. Yeah, in theory. But in practice, you don't know how to do it because you only know what you read. So hands-on practice goes a long way in these things. Now, you always hear people say, practice makes perfect. Yeah. What you don't always hear is, good practice makes perfect. Now, I could be practicing how to play basketball. I did. I'm okay at it. I'm not good. I thought I was practicing good. Yeah, I would practice every day. I still wouldn't be able to make a basketball hoop. I mean, forget about me touching the hoop. That was out of the question. But I couldn't make the basket. I thought I was practicing until someone told me, oh yeah, you're practicing, but you're not practicing right. Now, I could have kept doing what I was doing forever, and I wouldn't have made any improvement. That's what people call the definition of insane. Doing the same thing and expecting different results. If you keep practicing, and that's the best way of knowing it, if you keep practicing and you are not getting the results that you expect, obviously there is something wrong. It may be the way that you are teaching yourself that is not working out. So we're going to run into another technical difficulties in a second. So if it does happen, just bear with me. I'm trying to make it work so we could continue on this. But let me see. Now, as you could have noticed, we have run into two issues in a very short period of time. Now, one of the things that you have to this is a perfect example for what we're doing. As a supervisor, things are not always going to work out the way you want it. You made the perfect plan, everything is perfect, and then things happen. That's life. Oh, by the way, I hate when people say, it is what it is. Yeah, this is just, I hate that. It is what you make it be. So you have options. You cannot have just one plan. You have to have plan A, B, C, D. You have to have multiple plans. If you have one plan and you don't have a contingency plan, you're dead. That's management. If your plan to reach your goal is to do A, and A doesn't happen, then what? You didn't think of a plan B. So your plan was, we go to a park, we do whatever we need to, and we meet the goal. It so happened that day that you guys chose, there was a huge storm, and you couldn't go to the park. Then what? You have to have plan B. If that happens, this happens. That's something that you have to think of that is going to happen all the time. Now we have another issue here. With the first one, a little ambient noise, but okay, no, that doesn't kill anyone. We had a power issue. We fixed it as well. We're good. So we keep going. So you have to you're not going to have the answer for everything, but you have to have potential ways to get around issues that you may face when you're in this position. Now, I believe we're talking about the assessing part, the trainer part. So it's not a good practice. It's not practice makes perfect. It's good practice makes perfect. So you have to make sure that when you're teaching your employees and you're practicing with them, this is better known as role plays. Employees hate role plays. Anytime you go into any training sessions and you hear, oh, we're going to do this, then we're going to have a 10-minute role play session, everyone hates the role plays. Now, they don't hate it because it's not because they don't know how to do it. They know how to do it. That's what they do. They hate role plays more than anything because they're not comfortable with what they're doing. What does that mean? That doesn't make sense. Yes, it does. That means that what they're doing at their offices is not what they just heard right now that they were supposed to be doing. So they don't want to be doing what they were doing at the office because obviously it's wrong, and it hasn't been long enough for them to learn this new method, and you want to assess them on it. That's what that means. So you have to train them the right way and just make sure that they're good at what they're doing, or at least they're okay at what they're doing. Now, when you assess them, Once you have taught them the new information, you have trained your employees, and you believe that they understand the procedure, it's time to assess the retained knowledge. Depending on how the individuals fare, you may have to retrain them, or you may have to reassess your style of teaching if everyone is having the same issue. If everyone made the same mistake, it's not them, it's you, as a supervisor. Now, how many supervisors are going to acknowledge that? Now, few, if any. Not very many of them. So you have to realize when the issue is you as a trainer or the supervisor versus that of the employees. Would employees talk together and make it a big deal to that you don't know what you're doing? Sure, of course it's going to happen. But that does not happen to supervisors or managers that know what they're doing. Now, you're always going to hear, oh, that supervisor doesn't know how to do it. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know how they got into the position. Well, again, like I previously mentioned, you don't want to be there. You want to be the one that is strict, sure. You want to be strict as a supervisor, but they may be upset because you're strict and you know what you're talking about. Now that you are strict and you don't know what you're talking about. So keep that in mind. Remember, this process never ends. And if you think it has, you're wrong. You're missing something. Let me say that again. The process of teaching or training never ends. And if you think it has ended, you are wrong. You're missing something. Go back. Look again. There is always something to learn. In the fast food industry, they tell you, you see, you learn something from everywhere. So you just have to keep your ears up and your eyes open. From the fast food restaurant, they tell you, if you have time to lean, it's time to clean. Again, if you have time to lean, you have time to clean. It's the same thing. If you're a training, a supervisor, or anyone that is in charge of training or making sure that people are doing the right thing, if you think that everyone knows what they're doing, you are the one that forgot what needs to be done. So go back, make sure that everyone really understands what's going on, and retrain them. Now, as a manager, as a supervisor, one of the most, I want to say the most difficult thing that you're going to face is that of dealing with behavior. Now, managing behavior could potentially be the single most complicated thing that you're ever going to do as a supervisor. Every person has their own personality, may react differently to the same information. Everyone cannot be treated the same. You're going to learn that, hopefully not the hard way, but you're going to see that every person is a little different. Every person reacts differently. You cannot treat everyone the same, but you do have to be consistent in your approach to dealing with the behavior issues at work, regardless where they are towards the organization, co-workers, or clients. Now, what I mean with that, if an employee is misbehaving, the definition of misbehaving here will be doing something contrary to what works for the organization, what was instructed, is counterproductive to work, anything that it goes opposite to the completion of work. That's going to be our definition of misbehavior. Behavior, obviously the good behavior, obviously the opposite of that. You are what some people, what is called in the psychology, organizational psychology, you're going to hear as good citizenship behavior. That means that you're going above and beyond. Now, not everyone is going to do that. Not everyone is going to go above and beyond their duties. You want them to at least do what they're supposed to. If they go above and beyond, fantastic, great. But at least the minimum, not less, because then their behavior is not productive to teamwork. So, for example, as a supervisor, your reaction towards minor incidents should be just that. They are minor incidents, but depending on how you react to them, it can escalate them into major incidents. Recognizing whether the incident affects one individual, a number of individuals, and whether it is a repeated offense determines the path that you follow. Now, this is the first time that I forgot to clock in. I was there, I just forgot to use a time card to clock in. Don't make a big deal out of it. If I was the only one that forgot about it, when you're in the middle of the office, tell everyone, you have to sign in, you have to clock in. This, don't make it a big deal. It was a minor little thing. You approach a person and you tell them. Now, if everyone is doing the same thing, okay, fine. Now have a little meeting. Just don't, it doesn't have to be a huge thing, but just let everyone know that you want everyone to realize the importance of clocking in. A little thing, don't make it into a huge thing. Now, if the problem is not minor, it's a bigger issue, things are disappearing from the office, or you're concerned for the safety of an employee because of the actions of someone else, then for that, definitely follow a different path and make sure that everyone is aware so it doesn't happen. But remember, little things don't make it into big things, because that's not good. That's not a good practice. Now, going to the co-workers part. If an employee is bullying another employee for any reason, you must immediately step in. Now, bullying. Oh, you hear bullying. Bullying happens only in high schools. No, it doesn't. It might be a little thing here and there. And over time, no one says anything. It becomes a norm. And the person that is affected stays affected. And everyone else thinks that it's normal because no one said anything. Especially if you notice another supervisor abusing their authority, you as another supervisor either confront that person, that supervisor themselves, or if you don't want to get involved directly with that other supervisor, approach your managers. Everyone has a manager. So you could approach that person and tell them, hey, this is what I believe is going on, and you say it out. Work should be a safe place in which employees are there to do their job and not to purposely cause harm to others. So again, at the end of the day, everyone is there for a paycheck. That's what they were not there for, well, some people are there because they like their job, which is fantastic. I love what I'm doing. But if there was no pay involved in what you're doing, you still have to survive. You have to find something to support yourself. So keep in mind, we're here to help each other and not cause harm towards clients. I really don't understand why people act the way they do. You go to any place, and for the most part, customer service is non-existent. And then when you figure out what the issue is, they give you attitude for whatever happens. Now, the only reason for most jobs, really for almost all of them, the only reason that you have a job is because there is someone that is willing to buy the product on or use a service that your organization provides. If it wasn't for that client, you wouldn't have a job in the first place. That's a simple explanation. So when clients are not being treated fairly, that is not good for business. Now, clients are not always right. That little thing that says clients are always right. Clients are not always right, but they are rarely wrong. What does that mean? Now, everything that a client is going to say when they're upset, or it's not going to be true. It may not always be true. But from what the information that they're giving you, they are upset about something that happened. They may be confusing, or they may not be using the right terminology for what the issue is. But that's a problem. They may not be always right, but they're rarely wrong. So keep in mind that behavior is going to be, in my opinion, potentially the most difficult thing to tackle. It's something new. Remember, personalities are different. Sometimes you as a person yourself, you cannot even deal with yourself because of something. So just in mind that you have to deal with all the other people's issues plus yours. So just keep that in mind when you're dealing with behavior, managing behavior. Now, one of the things that is fun, really. Like I said at the beginning, you have been trying to become a supervisor or manager for a while. So you got the position, which is great. Your friends are happy, your co-workers anyway, they're happy for you. Your family members, everyone is happy. But then you realize that, let's start with friendship. Let's start there. In this new position, you are going to realize that friendships may begin to get strained and some may completely fall apart. What do you mean? Well, is it because you change, or is it the job? Is it both? This is what happens when you were an employee. You could hang out with your friends. You will go out with them. Again, let me backtrack a second there. Friends. If the person if you got to know this person as a co-worker before they were your friends, they're co-workers. Now you may treat them as friends, but they began as co-workers and they may have been promoted to friends because of the time you guys spend together. My definition of friends are those that you got to know as either cool kids or outside work, unrelated to work. Co-workers are always co-workers, and once you're no longer co-workers, it's hard to keep those friendships. Sometimes it works, but most of the time. So that's just my take on that. So going back on friendship. So that friendship that I'm putting there is friendship based on co-workers that are your friends. So you have these co-workers that are your friends. You are friends with them before you became a supervisor. They're still your co-workers. And you guys hang out together, go out together, everything is good. You become a supervisor. Even worse if you become their supervisor. You become the supervisor of your friends. That will be even worse. It happens, it shouldn't, but it does happen. You became a supervisor. Now, your responsibilities have changed. Now you answer to the organization directly. You represent the organization. Now you may not be able to go outside anymore and be drinking on every Friday night, happy hour. You may, but the organization may not appreciate that because now you are a representative, if you want to put it that way, of management and the organization. So now you start telling your friends, which are your coworkers, oh, no, I can't go. I have something to do. And then you start becoming the bad person. Oh, now you're a supervisor, you don't want to hang out with us anymore. Well, it's not the case. It may be, but it's not necessarily the case. It's not, now I cannot, but I cannot tell you that. I don't want to tell you that because then I wouldn't be a friend. So that's some of the problems. Now for the conflict of interest. Since you new position, a simple night out, as I told you, it's not really going to happen. Vacations of going together a group of people and you're the supervisor, that's most likely out of the question. That's not really going to happen. When performance review comes out, who's going to do the performance review? They're your friends. Are you going to rate them as friends / co-workers? Or are you going to be just the person that is their supervisor and you're going to review based on that? Now, those conflicts of interest are difficult. Remember, they are going to consider you as their friend, and you did as well at some point. Now you are potentially their supervisor. Again, that shouldn't happen. It does happen. So now, how do you treat them? You may not want to give them a bad review because they may not get the positions that they're going for. They may not get a raise, and then they're going to blame it on you. And then because you were friends before, and now you are not helping them, you're the bad guy. And then you just a snowball effect. That's why when you become a supervisor, you shouldn't stay on the same position, on the same office that you were, because that generally doesn't work. Now for the effectiveness, just as a side note, even though I didn't put it there, let's say that it happens as well. You had some sort of romantic relationship with another person before you became a supervisor. Now, you became a supervisor. Romance between co-workers, it's not, the company didn't frown upon it, but they would rather not have it. But now you became a supervisor. Now that romance could potentially have legal implications. That's part of the conflict of interest. There are a lot of things that get affected when you become a supervisor. So keep all those little things in mind and ask questions. It never hurts to ask questions. Now, the unforeseen consequence of the effectiveness. Are you being as effective as you can, or are your friendships affecting your effectiveness? What do I mean with this? So, as a supervisor, are you having your friendships determine the type of work and assignments and the schedules that you give your friends, which happen to be now your subordinates? Or are you honestly giving and assigning the work based on what you think is worth it? Also, keep those things in mind, because when you get reviewed, your supervisor or manager is really not going to care whether that person is your friend or not. They're going to care about the end result and what happened. So be mindful of that part. As we get closer to the completion of this first session, I just want to go over the objectives really quick, the one over at the beginning. So the definition of what it means to be a supervisor or a manager, really. Anyone that could or has the authority, even without the title, to assign work and direct work. So if you have delegated the authority to someone else, as implied, to direct work or to assign the work for you, you are technically making that person a supervisor. If something were to happen as that person is doing that, they, as well as yourself, as well as the organization, could be held liable for the actions of that individual who didn't have the title as a supervisor. Knowing what is required to be a supervisor. Now, we have gone over for a while now on what is required to be a supervisor. Not everyone meets the criteria, but they still manage to become a supervisor. Now, there's not much we could do with that. If a person becomes a supervisor because they knew someone and that person influenced the decision for them to become a supervisor, hey, congratulations to them. Now, you are a supervisor, now you have to perform as a supervisor. Otherwise, eventually you'll get let go. You should know by now the description of who is a supervisor, to describe the roles and responsibilities of a supervisor. Now, in getting ready for this presentation, one of the things that I've read in one of the presentations, in one of the books, is that it says, if a supervisor is not willing or is not able to monitor their behavior and make changes to them, they shouldn't be in the role of a supervisor. Very simple. If you are the supervisor and you are not willing to accept or to realize, to monitor yourself and the actions and defects that you are causing on other individuals, you may be in the wrong position. So just think of that part. You have to be aware of your impact on others. Now, so again, I want to end on an opening note. Remember, this is the first of 3 sessions. So in this first session, before we go to lunch, we'll come back and we'll finish the other 2 sessions. Again, I want to say congratulations. You got the job. Now it's time to perform and do the best you can as in your new position. Thank you.